now we get to the final sort of component of our pre-practice prep routine. We've already addressed soft tissue. We've addressed mobility and strength and end range. We've addressed movement skills, dynamic flexibility. We should be loose. We should be sort of neurologically ready to go. Have a nice little kind of sweat going, so we're warm, okay? The last piece again is this, what we call a neural primer. We can think of this in a couple different ways. One, yes, this is absolutely neurological preparation for what we're gonna go do on the ice, okay? It's not a tremendous amount of work. The goaltender should not be tired or fatigued in any way after this. In fact, they should walk out the door feeling like $1,000,000. Fresh, sharp, crisp, powerful, explosive, mentally engaged. We don't want our goaltenders, any of our players, to be honest, to get onto the ice and kind of just sluggishly take 15 minutes to kind of get going. We want to jump on the ice and be going and be ready to go and utilize our time as efficiently and as wisely as possible. So the neural primer portion of our prep is absolutely designed to enhance that and create that stimulus. It's also a way to microdose training stress over the course of the year, right? So in the NHL, we get very little time to actually train. You know, we essentially play a game every other day. So when do you get good, sort of solid strength and conditioning work done? Because the reality is, if you don't use it, you lose it. If you try to maintain what you've built in the off season across a 7-month season, you're going to be worse off by the time you get to the end of the year, to the playoffs. That's the reality of the human body and physiology. You have to continually address and try to get better to at least allow yourself not to get worse. But again, very hard to find significant time and energy to be able to put into training with the schedule that we have and the travel and just everything that's going on. So one of the approaches that we try to take is something called microdosing, where we basically apply small, consistent training stressors to our goaltenders and to our athletes as well, all our players, consistently. So instead of 1 hour-and-a-half long marathon gym session every other week, we try to get several 5 to 10 minute sessions in over the course of a 7-day period. And if we can just touch on these qualities consistently over time, again, like we've talked about in the past, we want to get 1% better kind of every day. So if we just touch on these qualities, so it's prep for what we're going to do on the ice, but it's also training. It's also a microdosed approach to training. So at our gym in New Jersey, we have some really fancy equipment that we can do some cool stuff with. Obviously, you may not have $100,000 piece of training equipment like we might have. I certainly don't have that in my basement. So here are some ways that we can kind of replicate some of the things that we do in our training center in New Jersey. So the first exercise that we're going to do is we call it a 1080 reverse VH rotation. 1080 is the name of our equipment that we use. So we're not going to have the 1080 obviously, but we are going to have, pretty easy to find, okay, a couple of 1-inch wide super bands, rubber bands. So we have 2 of these bands, and I've got a pole. Okay, you can imagine being at your local rink and kind of finding something similar to this. So all I'm going to do, loop these bands around the bottom of the pole, create kind of a tether. So now I've got some resistance. I'm going to be able to do some strength work off of this resistance from the bands. So the reverse VH position that we're going to get into, lead shoulder, I'm going to put this band like a seatbelt over this lead shoulder, come out here so I get some tension on it, and I'm just going to get myself kind of down into a reverse VH type position. We want to start sort of collapsed down. So I want to think sit down and kind of rotate into the band. So I'm relaxing the band right now. There's not a lot of tension. All I'm going to try to do from here is come up and rotate out. So I'm using this hip to come up and rotate out. Come up and rotate out. If I need some more tension, more strength, I can scoot out a little bit. Up and out. Up and out. So I'm getting glute, hamstring, lower body core stability. I'm getting some strength and rotation through this hip. And I can do the same thing really quickly going the other way. We're just gonna get about 4 reps per side. So again, you can see I'm gonna collapse down a little bit and then rotate up. Rotate up. So I'm using this hip to drive myself up. Okay, that's the first exercise we're gonna go through. The second one, we call a wide stance short shuffle, okay? So we spend a lot of time, generally speaking, from a strength and conditioning and performance development standpoint, working on full range of motion exercises, full range of motion squats, and that's very, very important. But we also want to add little bits of specificity, especially at this level where our goaltenders are so well developed. Little bit different approach possibly for the youth goaltender where you need more of a developmental foundation. Some of our guys are very big, very strong, very well trained, so we can hone in on some specifics. So that being said, not very often are we going to be in the net and be able to load and push and have this huge range of motion through this leg. What we're going to have to be able to do is short shuffle, hard push, right? And I know a good friend of mine, Maria Mountain, has talked about this a lot, and her and I had some conversations around this, and I really think this is a beneficial exercise and thought process for our goaltenders. So, same setup. I'm going to put this over the lead shoulder, get some tension, and really all I'm going to do is load and drive, load and drive, load and drive. Short range of motion. Let's see if you can see where my range is a little bit. So I'm not down here for this particular exercise. I'm up fairly tall in my stance where I would be, and I got to create a lot of force, a lot of explosiveness from this higher position. Drive, 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 and I'm going to get about 8 reps per side. So I'm just really working on being strong here and being explosive. The next exercise we're going to go to, a little bit more of a plyometric, so a little more reactive. There's going to be a deceleration and a reactivity component. We call it a drop step bound. Bounding just means I'm going from one leg to the other, but we want to be a little bit more specific for our goaltenders. So if you picture I'm at the top of the crease, okay, puck's in the slot, it's going to come down to the bottom of the circle. So I'm going to be here and I'm going to drop step, meaning I'm going to bring this lead leg in to allow me to open my hips and shoulders and move in the direction I want to go in. I'm going to square up and then quickly rebound back. So that puck's going from the slot, bottom of the circle, back up to the slot. I got to react back, okay? So I want to be powerful and quick and then come to a square stance here. So I'm here, drop step, back and square. Other way. Drop step, back and square. Drop step, back and square. So you notice I'm not spending a lot of time down here. I don't want to get here and come back. Yes, I'm more powerful and explosive if I load into this, and there's definitely a time and a place to develop that. But again, we're prepping for getting on the ice, so I want crisp because that puck's going to move quickly. Drop step, back and square. Drop step, back and square, okay? The last one we're going to do is sort of a total body core stability / explosiveness exercise. It's called a split stance drop and chop. So I've got a 10-pound plate. Could be just your water bottle. If you're at the rink, you don't have any equipment, could just be your mask. Anything for just a little bit of load, a little bit of offset is all you're really looking for. 10 pounds is probably even a little much for the purposes. But basically, I'm going to start up tall in an athletic position. So we're not super goalie specific right now, just positioning. I'm going to start with the plate diagonally over one shoulder, and I'm going to end up driving it down, chopping across my body in this diagonal pattern. At the same time, I'm going to drop into a split squat, and then I'm going to pop back out of it. So I need to maintain core stability. I need thoracic spine mobility. I need hip mobility as I get in. I also need some stability for my lower body to be able to pop back up. So we're checking a lot of boxes with this last exercise. So I'm here, drop and back up, drop and back up, drop and back up. And then we go to the other side. Up high, drop and back up, drop and back up, drop and back up. We go through that twice, 4 reps or so per exercise, we're on the ice. From soup to nuts, we're maybe at 15 minutes. If we're really good and on the ball, 12-minute warm-up from soup to nuts. We're mobile, we're warm, sweating as you can tell. We've trained, we're actually improving our physical output over time. And most importantly, we're prepared to go on the ice. We've reduced the incidence of injury from a neurological and a tissue standpoint, and we're ready to go. And that's the end of our program. Thanks.